This week I learned it's really difficult to focus on reading when you're at home with the kids. Hey, what's up, bookworms? Mike back with another weekly update. We're about halfway through the month of August already. Can you believe it? Back to school time to start. My kids start back on Monday, so things have been a little wild around the house. I did work at home with them this week, and you know how much work can get done while you're at home with the kids. Wife is also an educator, and she went back a week early, so that's kind of been a fun thing around the house this week. So I haven't had as much time to read as I wanted to, but you know these things can and will happen. Good thing I am a little bit ahead of myself so far for the month of August. So let's begin, guys, by talking about what am I reading. I did finish *The Mercy of God* by James S.A. Corey, and I think I started off a little bit of a firewind when I said on Twitter that I think that this book will probably go most likely, most definitely be on my most disappointing reads this year. Now, look, I want you to understand my expectations were up here, and the feedback that I've gotten is most people have liked it. Now, I didn't dislike it. I was very disappointed with it. It was not what I was hoping for. It was not the follow-up that I was expecting after the brilliance that was The Expanse. For me, I am always going to be kind of hit or miss on sci-fi. I am very much a fantasy person. So with me, it comes to how well are you developing your characters. And I didn't feel like they developed their characters too well in this story. And I'm not going to kind of just repeat exactly what I said last week. It's just that a lot of the focus was on the idea, and obviously that's what a lot of sci-fi is. And I thought the idea was fine. You know, I kind of liked what they were doing. I liked the way it's being chronicled. I liked the way that it was laid out. However, I just felt like the characters, one, they weren't reacting like humans would react. It's the situation. They just saying, oh, they thought they might go crazy, and not showing the character feeling like they're going crazy. That isn't something that I feel like really kind of resonated with me. So I had a hard time connecting with any of the characters, and the way that I summed it up on Goodreads, as I said, it feels as if you were part of a group project with a bunch of students that you didn't know, and you're just kind of standing off watching them because you don't know any of them. That's kind of how I felt the whole time. I never gave one damn about any character in the entire story. The aliens could have come in and wiped them all out, and I'd have been like, on to the next one. That's kind of how I felt about it, and that's really rough for me to get behind. And I expected more because they did develop their characters very good in The Expanse. So I expected more on that regard. I've gotten a lot of weird feedback on not liking the book. And again, I don't like to use the phrase didn't like the book. I was really just kind of less let down with it. And I thought the idea was great. The execution was actually okay. The characters were just a big flop. I mean, they were just pretty much blank avatars. Like you could have replaced them with anybody and I wouldn't even have noticed. Like if you're watching daytime soaps and all of a sudden they got a different actor or actress playing someone that was playing them yesterday, that's kind of how it felt. You could replace them with someone else and I'd have been like, whatever. I didn't even really know. But the feedback I've gotten is the most outrageous one I got was, I have a hard time believing that Dune is your favorite book of all time if you didn't like those. Besides them putting a dedication to Frank Herbert at the beginning, I see no similarities to Dune whatsoever. But I just kind of want to emphasize the point that most people are liking the book. So don't take my word for it. Like I always say, guys, read it yourself and understand. But just know I was very let down with it. And I just, at this point, I don't feel like I have any need or desire to pick up book 2 if this is really what the series is going to be. Because I really don't have any interest in just watching, my science project, the book. That's really. I said the comparison I sort of made, even though I felt like it had a lot more world building than this, was the Adrian Tchaikovsky series, Children of Time. It's kind of how I felt about it. Not a bad book. It's just written in a way that it's not any interest to me. I have no interest in reading someone's science experiment. And that's very much what this is. I want characters that react like humans would react. And I didn't get very much of that with this. So, again, it's nothing that I'm going to sit here and just like detract. If you like the book, awesome. Remember, I want you to enjoy things. So I'm glad you are liking it if you liked it. But yeah, I seem to be on an island with this one, and this was a big letdown for me. And at the moment, I do not think I will be continuing when book number 2 comes out, and that breaks the heart just a little bit. I did read, I finished part 1, I guess if you would say, of The Darkness Comes Before. As you can see, that's not very far. So now that I know that I get to focus on this pretty much for the rest of the month, and I do think I got to pick it up a little bit. I didn't get to work too much on it this week. Because like I said, was home with my kids, and it was not very. This is definitely one of those kind of books you need to be alone. You need to have silence. You need to be in a clear headspace to pick up. At least the way that I'm reading it, it's like that. But I'm loving it. I really am all in on ℙ𝕦𝕤𝕣𝕠𝕜𝕤 story so far. There are some characters that I was like, okay, well, they're setting up this character. Oh, okay. So I can see now why people were like, hey, this world is brutal and cruel and unforgiving. Yes, yes, it very much is. And now I'm like, okay, well, don't get attached to anyone, like at all, period. What I worry about now is, like I talked about after that prologue, which I thought one of the best prologues I've ever read. And then they give you a new character when the book starts. I'm like, okay, well, what about that character I was interested in the prologue? With this, now I'm really, really interested in the ℙ𝕦𝕤𝕣𝕠𝕜𝕤 story. Now, this new part is called the Emperor, and I think we're going to get kind of the inner workings of the court. And I'm going to learn, I'm going to have a bunch of new characters dropped on me, and it's going to be very slow going. So, I know a lot of people told me, like the first couple hundred pages, or once it finally clicks. And I feel like it's clicking enough. I like the world. I love the randomness of it, like a crow that shows up that's got like a human head. Like, what in the world nightmare fuel is that? But I've got enough. It's good questions. I have good questions with it. So I am enjoying it very much. And now that I get to focus on just 100% that for the next 2 weeks, that should be fun. But I imagine it will take me the next 2 weeks to read this. And that's why when I say, what am I going to read, I don't really have much to add. And I think this might be a very boring segment on the weekly updates for the next couple of weeks, because this is probably just going to be what I'm going to read. Just kind of focus on that. I might pick up and try to finish Sci-Fi. I do think that I've given a long enough break. I wasn't really liking Sci-Fi as much as it was sold to me, but I feel like I can just kind of muster through it and get to the point to where people are saying that Water 7 is amazing. So who knows? Who knows? Maybe I'll get to a point in Sci-Fi where it does click for me. I just did take a little bit of a break there. But again, that's nothing against One Piece. Like I said, that's just me with all comics and manga. I'll pick them up and I'll read a dozen volumes, and then I won't read nothing for months. That's just kind of the reader that I am with manga. So I never should have actually put arcs or sagas on my schedule as a whole, because those are just kind of mood reads, as it were. If I somehow miraculously start really flying through the darkness, because before, the first book for September is going to be our ℙ𝕦𝕤𝕣𝕠𝕜𝕤 read that I do with Brian and John over at Talking Story and Dr. Philip Chase. We're going to be doing, what's it called, Ordinary Grace by Will and Kent Kruger. It's supposed to be a really good coming-of-age book. But that'll be our ℙ𝕦𝕤𝕤𝕣𝕠 book for the middle quarter, or I guess the third quarter, middle quarter. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I work in finance. Can you believe it? The third quarter of the year, we will be doing Ordinary Grace and talking about that, I believe, on Philip's channel for September. And then Philip will be picking the book that we do for the final quarter of the year. But very excited about that. But that would be the first one that I plan to read in September. And if I start any reads early, that will be the one, but not until I am done with the darkness that comes before. I'm going to give that book my full undivided attention, and it's going to be a blast. How about this week on the channel, guys? Did a couple of things. Of course, went ahead and talked about all the books that I added to the home library in July with a book haul. Really, really fun. I was kind of goofing around with some things. I thought maybe, I got the new background lighting, and I tried green since I was wearing a green Zelda shirt. I thought it would pop really nice. So maybe it was a little too bright, but hey, I'm still working these things out. And that's one of those, as a content creator, you just recorded a 25-minute video. Do you really want to go back and re-record it just because the background's a little bright? Nah, you just say, hey, I'll get it fixed next time. So if I use green again, I will make sure I dim it a little bit before I go through it. But besides the technical issues aside, book hauls are always a lot of fun. Getting to show off some of those awesome things that people are just way too kind to send to me, and I get a chance to say thank you, and I get a chance to put a spotlight on some of those independent or self-published releases. And I gotta say, Doug did send me some of that Death Wish coffee. I went and got a bean grinder, and I have been annihilating that coffee. It's so good. So thank you, Doug. That coffee is amazing. I've always wanted to try it, but I was always like, it's a little out of my price range for coffee. Because I'm one of those, it's like, I'm not a coffee snob. I love coffee. And yeah, I might be like, airport coffee might be, technically coffee, but not really. But, like I said, I buy like the cheap stuff up at the grocery store they make in-house. It's really, really good. So I'm always like, well, I'm not going to pay 3 times that to try this Death Wish coffee. But Doug actually took pity on me and sent me some Death Wish coffee. And it was amazing. So thank you so much, Doug. That's been one off my bucket list there. And it is as advertised. I understand why they can get away with charging as much for it as they do, because it is quite good. It's got that little chocolate cherry kind of vibe to it. Really good. Really, really good stuff. Would recommend. Then I did my author's corner with Blake Crouch. And for me, that was a lot of fun, because not only is Blake Crouch one of my favorite authors working today, With that, it was an opportunity to kind of get a peek behind the curtain. And this is why I don't think it matters if you guys have read Blake Crouch's stuff or if you've even seen Dark Matter, if you want a kind of an idea of the inner workings of what goes into adapting a book into a television show or a movie. I think Blake really doesn't pull any punches there, and he tells you some hard truths about the way that the industry works. And that was really kind of the theme that we're going for. What is it actually like trying to adapt your own work for television? He was very involved. He got to be the writer and the showrunner for Dark Matter, and that's why I think it was such a wonderful adaptation, and he actually augmented some of those things in the book that made it even better when it hit screen. And the fact that we are actually just got announced that there is going to be a season 2 of the show, which, people have already asked me, hey, you're against Shogun season 2. Why are you for Dark Matter season 2? Well, because Blake Crouch is actually writing it. If I can't get the Dark Matter sequel in book format, this is the best way since Blake Crouch is writing it. So if James Campbell was still with us and he said, you know what, I'm glad that this is such a success, let me write a season 2 for you, I'd probably be a little bit more behind it. So that's the difference there. But it was a very fun conversation. Blake is just salt of the earth, absolutely great guy. I've talked about anything. And I even had a point where I tried to recommend the First Law to him. It was a lot of fun. He wanted me to recommend a fantasy series to him that wasn't super overly intricate in its world building. And I went with First Law because I think those things are there, but I think what he was actually described, what he was looking for, First Law was a series that I recommend to him. So a fun conversation all around. Thank you everybody who joined and did ask questions. Blake did answer questions on the fly and stuff. And it made me learn that a lot of people are fans of Dracula, this collaborative book he did with some other authors. And I think I've got to dig this up because I really didn't know very much about it. But a lot of the comments wanted to ask him about Dracula's and what that experience was like. So I'm running out of Blake Crouch books, and so I do ask him about his new book coming out hopefully soon there. And, that was fun. The fact that he couldn't tell me anything, it was kind of fun. But, he might have told me some things when the camera was off. Who knows? You guys will just have to wonder on those things. But great talk. And I enjoy doing Author's Corner and trying to put like some kind of theme into it instead of just asking questions about, their books, just kind of asking about a specific thing. Like when I had Ryan and some others on, we talked about, the importance of novellas. With Christopher and Shauna Lawless were on that too, the importance of novellas for authors. And with this one, it was, what was it like kind of adapting your book to the screen. So I'll try to keep some kind of topic like that when I do Author's Corner in the future. But I don't have any on the record right now or on the plans right now, but we'll see what we can come up with in the future. As for some next week plans, guys, got a couple of ideas. I might do a Mercy of God's review. I don't know, because I feel like it'll be viewed as very negative. And I don't like to do those kind of reviews on the channel, so I'm still debating if I'm going to do that one. I was on Bibliotheory's channel earlier this week with the folks from ℂ𝕦𝕤𝕕𝕤𝕤, which they're awesome guys. If you haven't checked them out, please do so. And he does his thing, this book battles basically, and he did the first book, Red Rising, against the first book in Sun Eater, The Empire's Silence. And it was one of those where he asked me because I told him that I was sick of this. That every time I talk about Sun Eater, I gotta have someone in my comments talking about how Red Rising's better. And every time I talk about Red Rising, I got people being like, "Oh, Red Rising is, crappy bubblegum stuff. Sun Eater is the real thing." And I was just like, "Why are people comparing these series so much?" And it really frustrated me. So in that conversation, of course, he invited me to this conversation because I was frustrated with it. But it was a fun conversation comparing two books that I love, two series that I love. And it got me thinking, you know what, I think I'm going to kind of piggyback off that, and I'm going to do a video saying, stop comparing these two series. I'm going to talk about why they're so different, and why they're both so good, and why you should read both, and why basically, if you're looking for one thing or the other, I think both these series can have those, and both these series have something that you'll like out of both of those things. So if that made any sense what I just said, I'd be surprised. It doesn't sound like it made sense right now. Who knows? But I'll be doing a Red Rising, Sun Eater kind of video next week. Just kind of talk about both series are great. Give both series a try, and one doesn't have to be better than the other. They can both be good. You don't have to tear something down to build something else up, I feel like. And I would talk about why both those series are great. There's room in our lives and our reading shelves for both these series because they are both great. And my goal on this channel one day is to have both Christopher and Pierce Brown on at the same time, and the three of us will just talk about Dune for 3 hours and confuse everybody. It should be a lot of fun. I'm thinking about doing a live stream. I think about maybe like an end of summer kind of thing because, I haven't hit like a milestone or anything. I think we crossed like 121,000 subscribers. That isn't really like a reason to have like a milestone or whatever. I just haven't had one. I don't think I've had one this year. That was just an AMA. So I think I'm going to have an AMA just this Friday It's my 9 to 80 day. The kids are back at school. I'll be off that day. I figure that's a good chance for me to just kind of sit down and kind of shoot the shit with you guys. And I always say, as long as you guys are talking and maybe sending me super chats, you don't have to, obviously. That's just the quickest way to get your question answered. I think that that would be a fun time to have. I'll continue going as long as you guys aren't asking me the same questions over and over again. I feel like a conversation is live, and there's lots of good topics coming up. We'll keep going there. So that will probably be the plans there. A couple TV movie talk things before I go. I know that we kind of slacked off a little bit on Mike's Media Reviews. It's just wife went back to work, and guys, if you're married to an educator, you know it is not fun that first week going back to work. So it's one of those days where we weren't able to get together for the weekly wrap up this week, but we will probably do so here soon. In fact, we're actually thinking about doing it a different way. I'll get into that over on Mike's Media Reviews. But I did watch this Pete Rose documentary that came out on HBO, and I did a solo it was meant to be a review over on Mike's Media Reviews of this. It's called Charlie Hustle and the Matter of Pete Rose. And it was meant to be a review. And when I turned the camera on, that's what it was. It basically turned into a rant of me just taking a torch to the MLB Hall of Fame because they won't let Pete Rose in there. But it's an amazing documentary. I want to make sure that people understand, yes, it awakened some anger in me that I didn't know was still there. It's one of those things I just kind of got over. I thought I was over the fact that maybe the greatest hitter in baseball history is not going to be in the Hall of Fame. But it awakened a lot of those things about it really looks as if you guys are being petty and just waiting for him to die before you put him in the Hall of Fame because you don't want him to have that satisfaction. And I think that's just so shitty. But the documentary was amazing. What I liked about it, as opposed to most things like this, it's usually just about the controversy. He bet on baseball and his life after that. It never really goes into, well, why are we having this conversation all the time? Because the guy was an electric ball player. And this shows his whole career, from where he ran to first base on a walk and got the Charlie Hustle moniker all the way through the years of the Big Red Machine, going to Philadelphia and helping them get over the hump and win a World Series, and of course breaking Ty Cobb's unbreakable record of hits. So I'm glad they showed his career interwoven with his reinstatement efforts with Major League Baseball. So it was a very, very good documentary, but it did piss me off. It did a lot because there's a lot of things on there. I'm like, they really know that Pete is an abrasive personality. I know this. I don't pretend that he isn't. In fact, there's several times in the documentary I'm like, dude, stop, just stop talking. It would be better. Say less. But again, when you're talking about Hall of Fame, you're talking about the Hall of Fame, not the Hall of Humanitarian. You're talking about the greatest players to ever play the game. He didn't kill anybody. He bet on baseball. I think it's been 40 years. He's done his time. He deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. I think so. You don't want him associated with the game? Fine. But it's just a museum in the end. And unless you want to become the Hall of Irrelevancy, like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame has become, keep doing this. Keep doing this thing when you decide you're going to keep the best players out. And if you start letting the steroid era players in before you let Pete Rose in, even on the ballot, it's not going to be a good look for you. But I hope you guys will check out that review. You will check out that documentary. It is very, very good. Even if you don't know anything about baseball or Pete Rose at all, I think you'll enjoy it. Just the drama of it is very, very good to see. We're going to talk a little bit about it more over on Mike's Media Reviews, but we did show the kids Twister, the 1996 Michael Crichton written Twister, and I was surprised how well it has aged because we're going to watch Twisters. That's the kind of lead in here, and I want to watch Twister first, and it looks really good still. I mean, there's a couple times I think like the CGI explosions look ridiculous in 1996, but like the actual tornadoes look impressive. And I'm actually wondering if Twisters, if they're going to look as good, so this is going to be 100% CGI now, not as many special effects. But the special effects, I mean, it's a 4K. It looked amazing. I was impressed at how good it looked because I expected it to look really, really aged. But what a great movie that is, and what a great idea by Michael Crichton to come up with that. And that's why I was apprehensive about Twisters at first because I was like, do we really need this? Do you think you can do this better without Michael Crichton now? But from what I've heard, it's very respectful to the first movie. And, it's got me thinking about Michael Crichton, Bill Paxton, gone too soon, both of them. And, hopefully it does feel like a good tribute to those two. I'm excited to watch that here with the kids. But that's really all we've had going on this week. There are some other things going on in the media world I want to talk about, like, really? Nicolas Cage is going to play John Madden. Okay. So we'll be talking about more of these things on Mike's Media Reviews sometime this week. So I hope you guys will join us over there. I hope you guys will drop in the comments on what you've been watching, what you've been reading, what you've been listening to, what you've been playing. I'd love to hear about it. So drop down there and let me know, guys, and I will talk to you there. Have a great weekend.